Welcome to Power of the Tribe podcast. I'm your host, John Connors. I'm also the founder and head instructor of Connors Martial Arts in Norwood, Massachusetts. We teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, kickboxing, and mixed martial arts. Reach out to us, give us a call, send us a message. Just come on down, and you'll be glad you did. Your life will be much better, Dan.
At least twice as good. That's a guarantee, I think.
Or 100% better.
Right.
Or twice as good. One of those.
Yeah. But one's guaranteed.
How you doing?
I'm all right.
Yeah.
I'm a little miserable. I got poison ivy from, remember that yard work I was talking about
That's
last
why I
podcast?
don't do yard work, yeah.
But you know what? It's related to, I don't know if this is a torture sort of comparison, but it's related to like sort of, I'm also been, we talked last time, been cutting my diet, this, like cut the sugar out and this kind of stuff.
The last week you were doing the Jerry Seinfeld calendar thing.
Right. Where you
Are you
put
still
an
doing
X. Yes.
X's
I'm in.
and O's?
I'm in for that. I think it's permanent. X's and O's. An X if I ate clean that day, and an O if I didn't. And it works like a charm. I encourage people to use it out there.
I thought it was an X if you ate clean and an O if you exercised.
Yeah, what'd I say?
O if you didn't, you said. Yeah.
No, O if I worked out. So yeah.
How's your weight doing?
Yeah, I don't know. It's not going down as much, but it's gonna work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can just tell it's gonna work.
Tell.
I'm cutting so much. Because here's the key. One more key that I'd encourage anyone is like, I don't use like days where, so a lot of days I don't have an X for clean eating, for example.
Okay.
Let me use today as an example for
All
a
right.
broader point. I'm probably not going to make it today. Like I'm going to probably have a glass of wine.
All right.
Maybe even something like I brought some fudge back from Cape Cod. I can imagine having
Fudge
a little.
that doesn't count?
It's real.
That's clean eating?
Yeah, I'm out. But this
Fudge
is
from
the key.
Cape Cod. Yeah. I mean,
This is
what are
the
you going to
key.
do?
Yeah.
Let that just sit there?
Right.
Yeah.
This is the key. Like on days, I don't treat a day that I'm not going to get the X like a cheat day. Like, okay, it's all off today. So pizza, you know what I mean? Like, so far today.
You don't go Caligula.
So this is like, it's like 3:30.
All right. Yeah.
So far today, I've had like a banana and some pineapple. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, so the key is for me is this, like, even if it's a day where I know I'm not getting the X, I'd come as close to it as I can. Do you know what I mean? Like,
good.
so
Yeah.
for dinner, I'll throw like raw I'll throw a turkey burger on the grill and just eat that with no bread. So it's like, I know I won't get my X, but I'm always cutting back. Like, do you know what I mean?
Good.
Always. Like, so I was out on Cape Cod and I'm out there and I'm like, look, I'm on Cape Cod. Most people, if you're on Cape Cod, you're like, I'm not dieting, right? Forget it. I'm here to have fun. I'm on the beach. But there was a million little things. Like, so if you go to a place to get like, I got like a scallop sandwich, right? And I'm like, all right, I won't eat the bread. I won't eat the fries. And I won't get an ice cream afterward. And it's like, that's a huge difference.
That's
do you know what I mean? Like,
difference.
it's
Yeah.
half the, you had half the meal. So it's sort of like, all I'm saying is this, the broader point, I don't want to spend too much time. It's just like, I'm always doing that now. So even if
That's
I'm not getting my X, it's like, just get as close as you can.
You know what I saw a commercial for the other night? I might have been hallucinating. It's a Whopper that's made out of some kind of mystery meat, like a veggie burger Whopper.
Oh, so that's not mystery meat then.
But
Mystery substance.
it's some kind of meat substance. I mean, what kind of evil wacko came up with that?
They won't say what's in it.
I think they'll tell you what's in it. But
I heard.
like, if you're worried about eating healthy, I mean, the Whopper is a full stop. I mean, let's get slightly improved Whoppers.
Yeah.
That's
what I hear.
Is that what it
about.
is? It's the
So
well,
I've
I guess
heard-
you're appealing to vegetarians then. So
Dimitri,
I
have you ever
correct
had an Impossible Burger? Is it good? But people keep saying this is a new thing, the Impossible Burger, that it's like it's veggie burger, but it's good, and it's gonna hit the mainstream soon. But I've never had.
I
it.
think that's where the vegetarians get tricked. They think as long as they're not eating meat, they're eating healthy, and I think it's. I suspect eating the Impossible Burger is not the healthiest option available. I don't know.
I'm guessing. Well,
Yeah.
especially when it's an Impossible Whopper.
That's what I'm saying.
It seems
yeah.
like when it's mass produced for like McDonald's, it doesn't seem. Or
That's
Burger
about
King.
as mass produced as it gets, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bizarro. Yeah.
So I just think this is more permanent. I always did this stuff, and maybe this applies to a lot of endeavors where I used to go in full bore, be like, all right, I want to lose 20 pounds. I'll give myself 10 days. You know what I mean? And then I'd
Yeah.
go berserk and I'd starve. And then either the pounds wouldn't come off. And so this isn't just dieting. This is, I think, jiu-jitsu too, right? You're like, I got to get better. And I get too uptight about it.
Yeah.
It's sort of like I feel like I've got to, what I'm trying to do is relax and go long haul. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Dan,
just
that is
relax
so
long
good.
haul. Like, I don't need to be like, next week at this time, or for belts, like if I don't have my purple belt by December, it's like just relax, long haul.
I think you're exactly right. I think the big mistake that people make in jiu-jitsu, and I'm sure this applies in most parts of our lives, is they look at the jiu-jitsu as a measure of themselves instead of a process of discovery of the jiu-jitsu, not even discovery of yourself,
Right.
So they go in there and I should be better. How come I? And that is just a recipe for suffering and frustration. I was listening to this guy, Mikey Musumeci, who's a 3-time world champion. I believe he's the only American to win 3 times. So he's pretty good, And with him, and I think all these greats, world champions, it's all about discovery and the process. He's like, I just like figuring out the next thing in jiu-jitsu. So he's not even thinking about how good is he, how not good
Or
is
if he's
he.
going to win, or if he's going to lose.
Yeah, it's all about this grand puzzle of jiu-jitsu that they're figuring it out. And I've been always trying to apply that, but I think lately, especially this past week, I've been more successful at applying that. And
There's our background music.
that's it.
For the podcast.
I wrote that. That's like our outro music.
Yeah.
I've been doing that, and it's working pretty good, Dan. It's real good. Yeah. It basically, when you do that, you never have a bad day. It's all good.
You're just trying to figure things out. And
Just trying to figure it out. And if you go in there for an hour or a half hour and you really try to figure something out, you're going to figure something out. So it's always good. And then I don't have anxiety. I'm not avoiding anything. I'm not feeling bad about my performance. I'm just there to figure something out, figure out the next thing, whatever the hell that is.
Right. Maybe a little different for a tournament, which you've got one coming up in a week.
Next week we go out to Vegas for the Masters World's Championship. Yeah, that's pretty exciting.
Right. And do you sort of have some sort of like peak in training, and then you start to relax the last few days or something?
Well, Dan, you know that I use all these biofeedback devices. Like I'm wearing my Oura ring, by the way. I'm having trouble getting it off my finger.
You said it as if you had like a real reason to be wearing it, but it's just because you can't remove it.
And so you want to know how my sleep was, or how prepared I am today according to the Oura ring? It says I am at a 64. It says I should prioritize rest.
What is the highest and lowest the thing goes, though?
I think it goes to 100. One day I got an 85.
And you sort of believe it.
Well, I definitely didn't have a good night's sleep. I slept 5 hours and 19 minutes. Not that anybody cares. And then my REM sleep, I think it wants you to have an hour and a half to 2 hours of REM sleep. That's where you're dreaming. I had 7 minutes of REM sleep.
Right.
That can't be good, right?
Doesn't sound right.
No.
But I slept in a tent in a campground, so I'm sure
Last
mine
night?
was worse. Yeah.
Yeah? Was it worse?
I'm sure it was worse. Yeah. There's just some like raccoons and I'm not saying this like hypothetically or like literally, 2 raccoons got in a fight like near my tent, and you just hear this squabbling and fighting,
awful,
and
right?
then dogs start barking, and it's just not. And you're on the ground and you're in a weird spot.
So at any rate, the reason why I brought it up,
Yeah.
Dan, is so I get this. It says I should prioritize rest, and of course I just went and trained hard. You know what I mean? Like I completely ignore all the feedback it's giving me.
Well, you got to train, right? For the tournament coming up. So
Yeah.
my original question: do you taper off?
We'll end up tapering because we're flying out Tuesday, and I compete Friday, so I won't train anywhere from Tuesday to Friday. I'll probably do a little bit of aerobic training, conditioning at the
Now,
hotel.
do you feel that all these things we've talked about in this podcast are working in that? Do you feel that you will be significantly less anxiety prone for this match than even for the
Absolutely.
last one you did?
Yeah, I feel completely different, Dan. Yeah, definitely. Which is a really good point because I had that other book by Tom
Mhm.
Bunn, the 10 Days to Be Panic Free or something or other. Made a big difference in the last tournament. But I realized not everybody has that level of anxiety about competing or other things. A lot of people probably do. So I didn't even bother to show the book to my son or give it to him because it
Because you
doesn't,
just don't think.
doesn't apply.
Yeah.
And you know what? Since the tournament, I haven't done any of the exercises. I haven't really looked at the book, but I haven't felt any need for it. I haven't had any moments of anxiety anticipating this tournament.
Made the change.
I think I made a change. Yeah.
So if nothing else, the podcast is causing lifelong changes in us, in the two of us.
And the two of us, which
It's just-
which is all that really matters, Dan.
well, that's the most important.
Well, we're also doing that. I saw some kind of tweet or something the other day. Some pundit, some life coach, self-help guru said, "Live your life." It might have been Joe Rogan that was quoted as this something, as if they're making a documentary about you, a movie about you.
Yeah.
And I actually have these maniacs that are making a movie about us, about me
that's
and the
healthy.
academy. It does. It puts a little pressure on you to live a little bit more of an interesting, exciting life, to take some chances, you know.
So you just need a good ending.
Which-
I'm just saying.
I know.
You need
Maybe
some
I'll
sort of
win
ending.
the tournament and then jump off the Eiffel Tower out there in Vegas.
That would be a tremendous ending.
That could be exciting. Yeah.
We'll start with a win.
But all of this stuff is making me better, Dan. Making me a better competitor, and I think ultimately a better coach.
And that's what I thought too about like my trying to eat healthy. It's sort of like whatever the weight is, it just can't be bad to be like not wolfing down crap all day. You know?
Definitely.
Or like wolfing down booze all day or whatever people do. You know what I mean? Like, and part of it, another thing that helps me too is that we've touched on it before, but what I've always said is like the opposite of like, we're all wired now for deep like sympathy and understanding with these things, and I show none of it to myself.
Sympathy and understanding.
For hard endeavors. Like,
yeah.
I'm saying, okay, I'm immediately cutting off sugar and carbs or something.
Yeah.
And we're wired to hear, like, you've heard all the time, like, that's going to be tough. And, man, sugar's as addictive as cocaine. And it's going to be, and, you know, people talk to me, oh, that must suck. And I'm sort of like, I don't give myself that luxury, like, in my self-talk. I think there's a place for harsh self-talk in that. So I get hungry, right? So it's easy to ramp up the drama, like, this is hard, this is tough, this is, and then I'm like, oh, it's not hard. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, I'm hungry. So what?
I think you're onto something.
It's like my poison ivy. Like, it's like, oh, that must suck. Like, people like that drama where I'm like, it itches. It sucks. Like, so what? Do you know what I mean? That sort of hard line. It's not everything has to be sympathy and and
well, I'm trying to
understanding.
have compassion toward other people, and basically I'm operating on the concept that everybody is doing the best they can, and they essentially have no free will, so they can only do whatever the hell it is that they're doing.
But it's always a balance, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, we always talked about this. We talked about, like, when a kid falls off a bike, you need someone to be like, hey, you all right? And then you also need to be like, all right, like, brush yourself off, get back up. You know, you need both energies. And all I'm saying is, to accomplish any of the goals we talked about, I think you hear a lot about, like, the sympathy and the understanding. And I think people, don't be, I mean, how many times have you heard someone say, like, don't be too hard on yourself? 1,000, right? Like, don't be too hard on yourself. Don't be too critical. And we've said it, and there's a place for it. But I never hear the other energy talked about. I never hear, like, yeah, but also be critical, also be like, look,
well,
suck it up a little. Like,
yeah, I guess you should say, we talked about this before, these hyper-conscientious nutcases who are too hard on themselves. So I guess probably the optimal advice is, I know it's really hard, but don't be that hard on yourself, but get back to work. Stop grousing and beating yourself up, and just get back to work, and making things better. Because all that time spent beating yourself up and self-flagellation isn't helping.
It doesn't do anything.
Doesn't do anything.
That's yeah. So, right.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'm hungry. My poison ivy itches. So what?
Yeah.
What am I gonna do? Cry about it? You know.
We have a system for the kids. Did I tell you this when we teach the kids jiu-jitsu? I think I've told
so.
you before.
I don't remember.
So, and I'll walk you through it. I think it's very effective. So inevitably the kids will be doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I'm talking about kids 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that. And they might bump heads like accidentally really hard. And, or somebody gets accidentally kicked in the nose.
Someone gets hurt.
Yeah. Not injured, but something that's painful. And they might start crying. They go, oh. And so what we do is we acknowledge their pain. You know what I mean? Because I think it's, if you tell somebody that doesn't hurt,
You're right.
you're kind of lying to them. And then you're losing credibility because they're like, actually, it does.
Yeah.
You're a maniac. So I say, oh, what happened? Did you get kicked in the nose? I try to figure out exactly what happened. And then, you know, when they say, yeah, and they're crying, I go, yeah, I hate when that happens. Coach Rory did that to me last week.
Right, so they're not alone.
They're not alone, and it's likely to happen again. So you better suck it up and get used to it.
Right.
Like, you're indirectly getting that message, like, this is part of the landscape.
Right.
And you're not being picked on by the universe. And then we say to them, catch your breath. Take a moment, catch your breath. You want some ice for that? And you know what? They self-soothe themselves very quickly, and then they're ready to go before you know it.
Right. It's that balance, right? You're like, I have sympathy. I know it hurts.
Yeah.
And now it's time to move ahead.
Yeah. We're not going to indulge ourselves too much with it, but we're not going to be in denial.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not an either or. It's not are you showing sympathy or are you not? It's
yeah, we're actually showing, I don't know if it's sympathy or empathy. Like, the exact same thing happened to me, and boy, it was no fun. But you're not going, oh my gosh. Yeah, you're not making it melodramatic. We do with all the kids at work. What we try not to let them do is leave the mat and run over to mom or even dad. But usually mom is crying with mom. We try to keep them right there on the mat. And we're not being cruel. We're helping them figure out their self-soothing sort of strategies and tactics.
And also that part of it is like, look, that happens to everyone is valuable, right? And it's something, one of the reasons we talk about negative things on this podcast too, right? It's like I feel like I'm not getting better or something like that. That message is always put out there to be like, look, everyone thinks that. Like
it's a very common
bad feeling is if you're like, you think no one else is, you're not noticing it in other people, you know? So I think it's valuable always to get the message out for any of these negative aspects of the sport or anything. Is be like, yeah, lots of people go through that.
Yeah, feel that way.
Because it's weird. A lot of times, common sense will tell you that everyone goes through it, but you don't. Somehow, it doesn't register with you. Like I used to say, even as an adult, I had the realization, as like a grown man, that like everyone has people being really rude to them in traffic for no reason. Like I would be so offended. Like if someone it was their fault, but they're still honking at me and giving me the finger. I'd be so angry. And only like as an adult was I like, wait, this happens to everybody. Like everyone has to put up with this.
Yeah,
everyone deals with guys like this in traffic.
Yeah.
And I only thought of it when I was like teaching my kids to drive. You know, it was like I had to tell them like, don't worry about this stuff. You can't worry about it. And I took the lesson to myself. And it's weird because obviously it's such an obvious point. Of course everyone has to put up with that. But it didn't really register with me, you know?
Right.
So it was good to think about it and think like, you're not alone with this, with whatever's going on. It's just part of life.
Right. Definitely.
And it's that same measure of like, yeah, it's annoying. So the sympathy or empathy and move on. You gotta just go. Yeah.
And then the idea we'd say, all right, catch your breath and let us know when you're ready to go again. So we're doing a lot of sort of presupposition there. Like we're presuming a lot that, oh, you're not leaving. Like you're going to do this. Just let us know when you're ready to do it again. Right. And it's very effective. I don't know if that's some kind of persuasion tactic, but very effective and to their benefit. And then they're ready to go again and it's over. And I don't think they feel the pain as much either. And they're ready to go. And and they're probably a little bit tougher and more rugged because of that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how we got off on that, but
We're
we're talking about discovery. So yeah, so my training feels really good, Dan,
Mhm.
and you know, this sounds very hokey, but the other thing I'm trying to use a lot of is gratitude. So I'm trying to just be grateful for my life, grateful for my health, grateful for the academy and my training partners. So when I go with somebody, I really try to think about and come from the place of being grateful to train with them. And that seems to be an antidote to being not too competitive, because I'm still competitive, but I'm not measuring myself. Like that just those thoughts of like, how am I doing? Should I be doing better? Why am I not doing better? All those questions seem to fall away when I'm just being grateful that I have a training partner that's helping me get better and helping me
Right.
learn
That's
jujitsu.
good advice in life in general, right? If you can, like, who's people aren't grateful for their health until they lose it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Or grateful for their family until they lose someone. Like, you know what I
And
mean?
we
Like,
hear
it's
it
hard,
enough. It feels like a cliche, and
Yeah.
it's like a Tony Robbins thing. You got to be grateful and have your gratitude
Yeah.
practice or something they say. I don't have a gratitude practice, but when I'm approaching my jujitsu, I try to thank everybody who trained with me and sincerely believe it. It's not just like a mindless ritual,
Yeah, I usually say thanks after rolls.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and either win or lose, you'll come back on and
Y-
you'll say what happened, right?
I don't know. If I lose, I might
If I lose,
not
he's
come
not
back on the
gonna come back
podcast. No, I'll definitely be back. Yeah, I'm in this for the long term. Like I said, I'm in to win a world championship before I'm 100. And if it's this tournament, great.
But if you turn 100 and you haven't won, are you out?
I don't know. Maybe I'll like lobby for some emeritus medal. You know what I mean? No. Yeah, I'm going for it. Yeah, I'm in for the. That's a new shirt I'm going to come up with, Dan. I think in for the long haul. Because these days it doesn't seem like anybody's in for the long haul, does it?
Yeah.
Not many, right?
Yeah, and I think it applies to so many things. Like, that's why I said, like, I brought it up with, I realize people don't care what I'm eating or if I'm eating healthy or something, but I thought about that idea of, instead of this goal for 2 weeks, be like, just overall change, long haul.
Well, the beauty of having the tournament is I have to be a certain weight. So then I really have to eat. If I don't eat healthy, I'm just not going to make weight. It's impossible. That's the other thing you learn when you're trying to get to a specific weight, is this idea of burning off calories is like very inefficient way to get to a weight. Like you have to do an extraordinary amount of work to burn a few hundred calories. You just have 3 light beers and like that's it. A day's worth of grueling workout is covered.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
I noticed that when I was on the treadmill, and I hate the treadmill. It's just a pain for me and discomfort like the whole time usually. And I forgot I'm at 400 calories. My treadmill says like how many calories burned. I'm sure it's some rough estimate.
Right.
It said something like 400, say. And I was like, I ate, I think it was literally seaweed, like some kind of seaweed, horrendous, like trying to eat healthy. And it was like some seaweed snack. And I'm like, I think that was how much was in my seaweed.
And what was it, like an hour?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I'm killing myself on this thing. And I just burned off the seaweed.
Just burned off the seaweed. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, that is not a good payoff.
Yeah.
Let alone then you have a Impossible Whopper. And you're like, what are you going to, you have to spend 2 hours on the thing,
2 hours.
Yeah. Maybe 12
Maybe
hours.
more. I don't know, man.
It's all right. It's all the intake, right? That's what you're saying.
Right. I was with some friends. My brother invited me over to his house for a cookout. And of course, it came up. Everybody seems to be interested in nutrition and exercise. And they were postulating, yeah, it's a lot to do with what you eat. And I think once you're over 50, maybe even over 40, it's 100% what you eat. I mean, you just can't out exercise.
You can't feed it.
Less than perfect food. Yeah, it just doesn't work. Yeah. Yeah, you got to eat pretty clean. I mean, got to enjoy your life, I guess, too. but it's unrealistic to think you're gonna.
But don't you think people get caught in the weeds with all nutrition? There's so many theories and diets, and that's why I always
so
said,
many.
in the end it comes down to.
There's so
I've
many
said it before on
boondoggles
this,
out
it's
there
just,
too,
yeah,
right?
And here's a new trick and another way to eat what you want, and it's just like, we all know how to eat healthy. That's what I always say. I mean, maybe someone out there doesn't, but I bet almost everyone listening knows how. You know
Right.
you know what to eat. You know
Right.
what not to eat. It's
Yeah.
that easy. So that's the way. That's all I'm doing now.
I mean, when
Like,
you
I
see
know what I'm
those
supposed to eat.
programs like Weight Watchers or whatever, where they have food and they have little and here's your little Weight Watchers brownie.
Yeah.
Brown. Is a brownie essential? Do I have to be eating brownies?
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, people want to eat their brownies. I guess
That's what I was
know?
saying too about each thing. When I'm like, oh, I could really use that. I'd love to have that cookie. And like I said, I'm harsh with myself in that I'm like, how much? Like, yeah, I want it, but that's not. You don't need it. You know, you just
Don't
want
eat it at all. Yeah.
You just want it. And then when I focus on, there's another thing I do is like focus on the feeling, like how hungry am I really? Like I'm a little hungry. Like it's not, you know, I've sort of taken the drama out of it.
Oh, right.
It's like, how hard is it for me to really not have that cookie? Like, it's not hard. You know, like
I totally agree.
I feel like a tug, but I could put it as like, oh my God, I'm starving. Oh, you know, like people talk that way a lot. And I'm sort of putting a stop to that where I'm like, yeah, I want it a little bit. Like I want it.
Today was the lightest I've been in a long, long time. I got down to 172. So when I had all my gear on, I'm 3 pounds under the limit. So I feel good about that. But I never feel hungry.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You know, I never feel like I'm depriving myself of food.
And even if you did, I'm sure you could see a slice of pizza and go, oh, that would be nice. But it's just,
Right now,
it
would have to be really, really good pizza because I'm kind of out of the woods of eating pizza. I haven't had a slice in a long time, you know. Yeah, a lot of it's what you're used to too. Yeah, when you're when you're closer to eating that stuff, it does have a pull on you for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And then that's why, like for the jiu-jitsu, that's why the people that are able to go all the time are the ones who just get it in their routine, long haul people that just, you know, they're not like, I need to have this by next week. And they're just in lifestyle people.
Yeah. So I was listening, they were interviewing this kid, that kid, he's a young man, Mikey Musumeci. And I'd like to, when they interview world champions, because you might get some insight. How are they approaching it? And
We talked about that last podcast.
Did we?
One of the advice for any skill was look at experts.
Oh, right.
It said something. It put it weird, like gaze upon them or something. Right? It wasn't that, but it was something that sounded stalkery.
Oh,
It
right.
was
It
was
did
like-
sound like you were stalking them.
Yeah, it was like stare at the experts or something.
Stare at
or
them.
was it-
Yeah, I think that was it, Dan. So he was saying that he learns unconsciously. The one thing is he's better at jiu-jitsu, I think, than communicating his
Right.
ideas. So basically, the gist of what he does is, let's say he's trying to do a knee cut pass against you and you're doing like a knee shield. He gets into that position and then they train live and he just does whatever it takes to pass. And if he senses that he did something unique that he doesn't typically do, he'll go, wait. What just happened? What did we just do? I was like, oh, you put your elbow on the inside and lifted my thigh up when you said, oh. So he's at a very high level. Obviously, he's world champion. So he's learning new techniques through play, experimentation, and self-discovery. Like he doesn't have an instructor necessarily giving him a new piece of information. He's unconsciously discovering it and then codifying it, like clarifying it, writing it down, and then learning it consciously.
Right. That's probably the only thing my hesitation about that is it sounds like something for good people at jiu-jitsu, like people that are sort of natural at it or just have a talent for it or very athletic or something.
Or they have a
because
context.
there's people, I feel like I could try forever and never figure out like a good strategy for certain things. You know?
I think you're right. I think you need a certain context. So whatever he's doing, he's got that puzzle pretty much 90% filled out anyways, and he's just finding the little extra pieces on the edge that he's adding.
Right. And don't you think there's something in jiu-jitsu, there's people that are just naturally talented? And
Absolutely,
they're just like, I don't know what I did there. It was like a white belt. And you're like,
Yeah.
well, it was really good. You know, and not everyone
Absolutely.
does that, right?
Right. Every endeavor, there's people who have more talent than others that just things come
Yeah.
quicker to them and they have a sense of how to move. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Were we going to do more life-changing advice today?
We do more of the
Because we're
little
changing. So far, we're changing my and your lives with this advice.
I think
We just
so.
hope someone out there.
Yeah, I think, like I told you, I haven't had any anxiety thinking about the tournament at all. Although I didn't sleep well last night, here's what I did do, Dan. When I was in bed, I started thinking about doing jujitsu, and I didn't have any anxiety, but I just kept playing jujitsu in my head. I'm passing, knee on stomach. I'm doing these different positions and doing things. And I think that, and I did that for too long before I fell asleep. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
almost like ruminating, but I wasn't worried. You know what I
Right.
mean? It wasn't, there was no
But
anxiety.
don't you do that before? That's what I do before I fall asleep a lot. Like just start ruminating on something.
I think
you
it's
know,
probably
whatever.
not good, but yeah. But I feel good in that I don't have any anxiety. When I think about the tournament, I don't have any stress response. I don't have any feeling like whoop.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't have any of that. So I feel
Cool.
good. I think I'm going to have a good performance. Yeah, but I put a lot of work into all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And if any of my students or anybody listening to this, if they're looking for help dealing with their anxiety about training or competing, let me know. I think I've at this point accumulated some really effective strategies and tactics.
Step one is being honest with yourself and with you.
That
you
is
feel
so
it.
good, Dan. So funny. I was talking to Steve Tirrell last night. This exact same thing came up, where if you're not honest with yourself, you can't make positive change. You can't fix
Yeah.
things, you know. And I'll give myself credit. I have been honest about all of this. And I, as a coach, I try to be honest with my athletes and my students and my son about it, so they see, oh, coach is being vulnerable about the anxiety he's feeling or whatever, and he's trying to figure it out. So in a way, I hope it's a role model for those people to see that you know, of course we're imperfect, but we can still work on those imperfections and try to improve them, you know.
Yep.
So that came up with Steve. He was I don't know what he was talking about. We were talking about business or something, and that came up. Might have been about relationships, where if somebody isn't honest with themselves, then it's a non-starter. Like you know.
Yeah. Stop before you can even start.
Right. Yeah.
You can't define your goals, and you can't.
And there's going to be a certain percentage of the population that has more anxiety than the other half. You know what I mean? Everything biologically is sort of on a bell curve. So you can have some outliers, that Alex Honnold, who can climb without ropes and he's not even going to break a sweat. And there's other people here that can't go up an escalator. You know what I
Right.
mean? And then there's the bulk of us in the middle somewhere. And all of that stuff is largely based on some genetics, something beyond your control. But you can make improvements on how your nervous system functions. So it's not a measure of yourself. You're not your nervous system. We
Right.
talked about that.
Yep.
All right, so the book, The Little Book of Talent by Daniel Coyle. Thank you, Daniel, for creating this book. Got some good stuff out of it. We're not going to do all 52 tips.
In fact, we're doing it's our service of we're giving the best.
The best stuff. We're cherry picking it, putting it in context. So here's a good distinction he made, Dan, that applies to jiu-jitsu. He talks about hard skills versus soft skills. And the way I think it applies to jiu-jitsu is, I would define hard skills as escapes, escaping mount, escaping back control, side control, defense, and maybe traditional attacks like a triangle choke or arm bar from the guard or something like that, where this is like so traditional and such a hard skill that you should learn a very traditional way to do it. Like there's no reason to break new ground for these hard skills. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Right. So say your examples again that you just gave.
I would say
So-
escapes, so escaping mount, side control, back control, defense against submission attacks, and then probably traditional attacks. If I'm going to triangle choke somebody from my guard, like we can pretty much all agree on here's probably the best ways to do those things, and let's everyone learn these hard skills. So we'll learn a certain mount escape, learn a certain side control escape. You know what? You don't have to do it for the rest of your life. You can teach yourself some other one. You can learn some other one. But let's all learn this stuff as a foundation. You know what I mean? The foundational techniques. And then soft skills or more novel attacks, or what you do in the scrambles, in the transitions, things like that, where somebody has, different qualities. They might have very mobile hips, so they're going to do something differently and so forth. You know what I mean? So I thought that was an interesting distinction, the hard skills and the soft skills. And what they're basically saying, too, is with the hard skills is you want to learn them the right way from the beginning. Because whatever you learn, if you don't learn it the right way, now you got to unlearn it. You know what I mean?
Right. Why don't you talk a little about soft skills, though? That means is this saying hard skills fundamentals and soft skills details?
I would say soft skills are beyond details. They're sort of individual to the player or the artist, or however you want to say it, Maybe in music, the hard skills are learning music theory and just scales and understanding notes and things like this. And then the soft skills are what type of music, you're playing or creating or whatnot. And yeah, in jiu-jitsu, you get all kinds of players. People want to do different things, which is fine, but they should all learn the hard skills, And I find that when people learn those hard skills, they're good. They don't even, without even any of the unique soft skills, they're already good if they have those hard skills down.
Yeah. What do you think about this? Because I've always found this. Tell me if you agree or not. That I always found, no matter how long you do jiu-jitsu, it could be valuable to go back to like basically a beginner class. Like if they're, you know what I mean? Like meaning, and maybe you don't think so. Maybe you're like, I know this amount of skill. It depends a little bit, right? Like if it's very, very, very simple, then you don't need that. But if you say, we're just going to do side control escapes today in like a beginner class format, that can still be valuable. Like brush up on it.
I think it's immensely valuable. Mm-hmm. Basically, when I roll with students, usually after the roll, I like to give them maybe some tip that they could do something different. It almost always revolves around escaping side control or north-south or something like that. And it's some fundamental thing that if they add, just an arm position, suddenly they're so much more effective. So, and then I'm always thinking about those positions anyways. Like right now I have an idea of like, this is probably the best approach to take, but I'm always stress testing it and tweaking it, and maybe there's some slightly better thing I could be doing and trying to add to it, Yeah, if you can't escape side control, I mean, jiu-jitsu's not going to be as fun for you, and you're not going to learn as much because you're going to get stuck down there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think. That's the other thing as a teacher. So when I first became a teacher, I had some insecurity. I think this is very common with people teaching jiu-jitsu, where they have that imposter syndrome, and they're afraid that they're going to be exposed when they go to teach a class. So when they prepare for a class, they want to bring like their PhD thesis. They're going to bring something nobody's ever seen, and we're going to impress everybody with the novelty of this and the esoteric style of jiu-jitsu technique we're going to be teaching them, and usually trying to show too many techniques. And as I got older and wiser, I don't do that, of course, at all. So now I focus on some fundamental principles. And I do teach a lot of things like, mount escape, side control escape, north-south escape. Yeah, a lot of the fundamental stuff like that.
And I've always felt that even, a black belt in the room will learn something. Like you said, if the white belts could be going through the same thing and they're first learning how to do it at all.
Yeah.
But the black belts will be picking up their
I used to be afraid sometimes when I had what I thought was a relatively simple, straightforward lesson plan. I'm like, geez, hope I don't bore too many people. Nobody was ever bored. Like every person in the room needed what I was showing. That's universal. Right. Yeah.
So you'd never have the mindset, right, of like, I already know this escape or something like that, because you can always work on it and you can always.
I've never had a student in one of my classes where I was showing something where they're like, this isn't helpful to me. I already have mastered every aspect of what you're talking about. Never, ever happens. Yeah, no matter who's in the class. Black belts, brown belts, purple belts, whatever. Yeah, never happens. Yeah, definitely. So that's the hard skills, soft skills. I thought that was pretty interesting. What do you think?
Yeah.
Cool. They're talking about doing it right from the beginning, so you don't have to reteach somebody who's doing it wrong. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here, Dan. Bear with me.
Past his bad points.
Yeah, I mean,
Just less
right. It
less
is a
helpful.
book, so every
Yeah.
page can't be amazing, right?
Cherry picking how to. What I'm waiting for is to hear from someone out there that they've. Well, I was going to say that they've also made major life changes based on the podcast, but
That would
first
be
I'd like to
cool.
hear that they tried it. Anything that we said, like that calendar idea, I think is a no-brainer for.
Dan, it's so
give it a shot.
frustrating
Give
to
it a
me.
shot.
I'll have people come up to me, students, and they'll ask me for my advice. I'll say, based on my 20 years of experience, this is exactly the best thing that you could do. And they look at me and I go, oh, and then they turn and walk away. They don't even try it. Drives me freaking mental.
And do you think that's because they don't believe that it'll work, or they're just not processing?
It's not the answer they wanted. It's generally too simple looking. It's not sexy enough. You know what I mean? It's not six-pack abs. It's just something
Right.
really basic, like holding a plate from a weightlifting plate and with your fingers straight and doing curls with that. Somebody asked me the other day, they go, what was that exercise you're talking about? Come on up here, I'll show you. And they're like, mm-hmm. And then that was it. They didn't. I don't think they even tried it. The funny thing is, I started doing it again because he brought it to my attention, and my hands and fingers feel better than ever. They feel stronger than ever. So that's the thing. I mean, what they also talk about in this book is like not making mistakes. So in other words, once you realize you make a mistake, you got to jump pounce on it and like try to get it out of your nervous system. You know, so if I'm doing something with you and I'm making a mistake and it gets pointed out like you can't have your elbow out here, then I got to go drill it, you know, at least a half a dozen times to start to get it into my nervous system, drill it correctly, you know, as close to perfection as possible. Otherwise, it's just, oh, I'm supposed to, okay, I'll remember that next time, like 3 days from now when I come back. Really, you're going to remember that? Yeah.
Well, that's a broader topic too, which I think I'll speak for myself, but I think it applies to a lot of people, that there's so much knowledge lost in jiu-jitsu. Like I've lost so much knowledge. Like, do you know what I mean? Like so much more than I actually have retained. And that's got to be a way to, there's got to be strategies like that to stem that absolute
I think it's
flow
being
of knowledge.
being ruthless with your mistakes. So years ago, I coached my son's flag football team. I think it was 2000. So he was about 10 years old, 9 and 10-year-olds. And great sport. I loved coaching them. It was such a great experience. But they had a rule where there were no fumbles. So if you're on offense and your player dropped the ball, the play was dead right there. Dead ball right there. So fumbles were very costly to the offense. And so one of the things I realized is we can't fumble. So I would have a drill where the team would line up half on one side, half on the other in single file, and they would hand the ball off to each other. So you hand it off to me, then I'm going to hand it to the next guy. And we would we made a game out of how many exchanges can we make without dropping the ball. And if the ball ever dropped, we'd stop the whole thing. And the people the exchange that dropped it, they would have to back up, get the ball, and then do it right this time without dropping the ball. And they, however much they had to slow down, like we never just said, just keep going, give it to the next guy. No. We corrected every mistake. And I think that was the best way to do it.
So how did you put it? Be ruthless with your mistake?
You got to be ruthless with your mistakes. If you're making a mistake, if your coach points out, like, this is a mistake. And everything's subjective to a point, but there's things that are just flat out mistakes. Then you got to go back and you just, in the moment, like when you get that information, you just got to take the time and drill that into your system so you'll stop doing it. And these mistakes creep in. Like, I was teaching this collar drag takedown. And if you can imagine, Dan, my inside foot, when I do this collar drag, I'm dragging them by me, I can't have that foot on the ground. And for some reason, people, they can do it properly, but then they start putting that foot on the ground to help pull the person by them. But it doesn't work well. And then the technique becomes less and less effective. And then they keep doing it the wrong way with mixed success. And now that way gets ingrained into their nervous system. And it's like, wait a minute, you had the right, you were doing it correctly before, and you were successful. Now somehow the technique has degraded because you weren't really paying enough conscious attention to it,
Right. And it also speaks to the harm of that sort of generalized leaving the gym like, I suck. Or leaving a roll like, I can't believe that guy tapped me.
Right.
I suck.
Or that I couldn't get that takedown. Well, why didn't you get the takedown? I didn't pull hard. No. What technically happened? Let's break it all down technically. And then what you have to do is, you have to analyze it. You have to break it down and isolate it to, like, that foot's not. So now we got to somehow drill that foot not touching the mat. And it might not even be doing the full takedown. It might be just sticking the foot out. And then
to be fair, though, sometimes you don't know what went wrong, right? Like, you don't know why.
You might not, but that's where your coaches and teammates are going to help you out. And, you might be able to figure out yourself. But if your coach tells you and points it out, now it's your responsibility to get that into your nervous system.
Right.
And you probably have to do a lot of drilling.
So step one also might be to seek out answers, right? To with your training partner or your coach or whoever it is. And then get it in there. Don't. It's an interesting idea to don't let the mistake sit there. Feel like any mistake, blatant mistake, any mistake that really captures your attention, be like, I want to eliminate this.
Yeah, everything you do is forming an impression in your nervous system. So we want to only put the best stuff in there. And if we see something that's not good, that's bad, that's poisonous, incorrect, then we got to get that out. We got to erase that out of our system and put the right stuff in. I think that's really important. And then that's the way you should be looking at it. It's all very technical. Then it's not about yourself and your worth.
Right. It all comes together as a piece with some of the other advice, right? Like,
definitely.
Then you're not like, I can't believe this guy beat me. You're just focused on what the mistake,
right?
And you want to fix it. You're not
sort of
comparing yourself to the other person or beating yourself up.
This guy, Mikey Musumeci, he said that he got swept from the butterfly guard. He goes, now I'm excited about trying to figure out how to my system for attacking the butterfly guard.
Right.
So he get renewed enthusiasm by getting swept, and that's the perfect way to look at things for sure. Yeah, and again about systems. What's my system for passing? My system for passing a butterfly guard. My system for taking somebody down. Everything has to be systems. And we're talking about systems in our life, how we're eating and how we're exercising and everything else. And I have a system for my jiu-jitsu career. The system is I'm going to be world champion at some point. What do I have to do to create a system that's going to more likely have that outcome and move me toward that outcome? So that's all that matters. And I'm just going on for a ride. You know what I mean? It's just a train that I'm on board and whatever. It's not a measure of me at all.
Right. And you've got 8 days.
Actually, it's 1 week. Next Friday, I'll be competing, Dan. Yeah, 1 week from today.
Yeah, well, good luck.
Yeah, it'll be great. We'll have a great experience. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, Dan, I think that wraps it up. We got a couple good tips in. I think the main theme that we're returning to here again and again is this theme of process, right? And systems. We got to come up with something sexy for a title because process doesn't pull. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a nickname, acronym.
It's an acronym. I'll work on that, Dan. Definitely.
Acronym by next week, by the time we get back.
Yeah. We got a week off, and then we'll come back. We'll talk about our results. I'm sure it's going to be great. It's going to be a fun trip. And thanks again for an awesome podcast. And folks, please share this and rate and review it. Tell your friends about it, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.